Today is July 20th, and I'm coming back into the shed to see how everything is doing. I got to get some lights on. I don't want to touch any epoxy areas yet in case they're not fully cured. So I'm going to just sneak back here to the power strip, get this thing turned on. Fans on, lights on. Everything feels dry. There's something called I think it's called anamine blush. There's a wax in the epoxy that floats to the top and acts like a barrier and helps the epoxy to cure. So when you touch it, it feels kind of slippery and waxy, like a candle wax sort of. But it is nice and dry. So we're looking pretty good on this one. This one's looking nice and dry. Feels kind of waxy, and it's supposed to. So I don't know if you can see that shine or the sheen from the fiberglass work. So the bottoms of the boat, the skeg and the keel have all been fiberglassed, as long as the inboard, also the inboard side of the boat. This being the inboard, the outboard's on the other side. When I flip the boat over, if I need to do any glass work, it's exposed, I'll be able to work on it. When this is flipped over, I won't be able to get into here. So there are some spots I know I have to sand. Epoxy resin makes this is very sharp, especially right down here. These little fibers are like little needles. So I'm gonna have to sand these sharp edges down and just kind of lightly feel my way around. There's another spot right here. So I need to do some detail sanding just in certain areas, like there. There's probably the same situation over on this side. Yeah, right here. That's a sharp edge right there. And right here. And right there. Sometimes the edge of the epoxy, where it flares out, gets a little sharp. Like right here, it's sharp. Because when you do epoxy work, you do a saturation coat and then what's called a float coat, which actually fills the weave in. You can see the weave of the glass right here, and when you fill it in, it gets transparent. But if it's not thick enough where it floats above the weave, you get a sharp edge. Like right, you can kind of see it right there. That's a sharp edge right there. So I just got a spot sand right there. And I'll just lightly run my hand, and if I feel anything that's super sharp, I can't push hard or I'll get like a razor cut. So just got to give some fine tuning here, and then I'm ready to flip this over. So I'm all good with sanding off all the sharp edges. So now this is an area that if anyone contacts it, they won't get an injury. So this is all set, and what I'll do is once I have both these, the front and the rear all sanded down, I'll just take some epoxy resin and just give it one last little clear coat, and that'll bring back the gloss to this area that I sanded. So this looks good. I'm gonna look along the edge of this margin line, like right here. There's probably some sharp edges on that are gonna need a little bit of sanding out. Okay, I got all the sharp edges sanded. That's on the front and the back of the boat, which would be the bow and the stern. I also went down the center line of the keel and the skeg, and I sanded out anything that was sharp. So let me get this boat out of here and flip it over. So here's a look at Knotty Gurl in her upright position. So this framework that you see is what I use to put it on the ground and flip it. So I wanted to be able to put the weight against this framework rather than the hull, because you could get a point load and cause a failure or a crack. So this framework was put on here when we put it away so we could flip it and safely not damage it in the process. So here's an overall look. You want to see inside of her. So we have a bulkhead that goes from the point to the first stringer that runs across the deck. So we have a waterproof bulkhead in the front on both pontoons. We have a completely open pontoon cavity until we get to the next bulkhead, which is a mirror image of the one in the front. So we have a bulkhead here to the tip. And these reinforcements were for the rudder hardware. The gudgeons and pintles were attached to this area here. You can see the holes line up with these blocks, so we had something solid to screw into. Same thing on this side. We have these blocks. Gudgeons and pintles are the names of the hardware for a rudder hinge. One is on a rudder and one is on the boat. So here's the other bulkhead, which lines up with the deck, and we have an open cavity. So what I want to do next is I have to change a tire. We have a tire that keeps leaking. This one here keeps losing air. And up front I have some spare tires. Actually I have two of them. You can never have too many spares. This one doesn't have any air in it at the moment, but this one over here does. So I'm going to dismount that tire and swap it out with the one that's leaking. So there's one less thing to worry about on the road. Last thing we need is a flat tire. So if I change that now, I can get it out of the way and then I can forget about it. Then we'll get this back underneath the canopy and we can do work on the top side tomorrow. I'm going to run out of time today and I'm going to have to head into work pretty soon. But I wanted to get this flipped and back inside of the shed over there before the rain hits. We're supposed to get some inclement weather later today and a little bit tomorrow as well. So I want to get this back under cover. So that being said, oh, here's the top side of the deck. Kind of give you a tour of that. These slots, we used to have a single person pedal station that engaged those slots. And see that round hole in the deck? That is where the propeller went down through the bottom of the deck. And that's why there's a hole in the middle of the trailer, because when we were mocking it up, we wanted to put it in there and spin it up and make sure that it would work. So we had to cut a hole in the deck to accommodate that. So this has been under many different renditions. We also had pedal stations in the front. We got away from the single station and went to a dually setup. And that's what this hardware here is. This is the mounting hardware to get that to be secured to the deck. So she has a long history, and it's nice to get her back out on the water this year. Looking forward to that. So I'm going to put this camera away and change that tire and get this thing put in the shed. Okay, we got that bum tire replaced. Now it's time to back Knotty Gurl back in under the Quonset shack and put her away for the day while I head off to work. Okay, the Knotty Gurl is back in the shack where it's going to be safe from any rainstorm or anything else that might happen. So now we're on the right side up side of things. Let me give you an aerial view here. So here's the pontoon, here's the deck space, and here's another pontoon. Now this big 2x4 framework that comes off, that was just on there so that when we flipped the raft, we weren't having all the weight on the edge of the hull. It's just kind of like a roll bar, so to speak. So we're all set here, and I'm gonna go turn all the lights off, turn off the fans, hang it up for the night. I got to hang it up and go to work. So this is the back end where we're going to put the motor mount. So it's going to mount right in the same place as this. It's going to have to be a little bit broader. I might have to cut some of this out. I'm not sure yet. Hopefully we could take off the motor mount on a little Willy and just exchange it and mount bolted on this. That would be a win, but I'm not so sure that that would work. Let me show it to you real quick and I'll show you what we're dealing with. So this is the motor mount we built for the little Willy. So you can see that it clamps to the deck and it has this board here where you clamp your outboard motor to it, and the hole depth from the bottom of the hull up to the pontoon is 12 inches, and then we got another 2 inches for the deck. So the way we got it figured out was the bottom of the skeg was even with the bottom of the boat. So we might have to figure out something else. We might have to have a drop mount to get this motor a little bit lower on a little Willy, because this is a short shaft motor. It may not reach as far as we want it to go, so I might have to use a drop mount, which I do have on my StarCraft Explorer. So this is a drop mount. So what you can do, there's a lever here you pull and you can set the motor up higher or lower to different settings. And it's been sitting for a while, so I'm not even going to try and play with it. It probably just needs to be taken apart and lubricated and put back on. But we can drop the transom or the motor mount down further with this. So we may have to resort to using this to get the motor lower if it's not going to work right on the transom of the Knotty Gurl. So that's the plan. If that doesn't work, we might need a long shaft motor. I might be able to borrow that from somebody, but we'll look at that tomorrow. That's it for now, folks. Catch you later.